Finally getting to the part of the year where I can be outside without a shirt on. There's still, sorry, without a jacket and a hat on. It's still snowy because of the big snow this week, but it's nice to be sort of soaking it up outside again for this. Today's April 7th. Yesterday I finished Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I think it came out at the end of February. 163 hours over about 5 weeks. So it feels like I'm more ways than one, it feels like I'm a bear crawling out of its den after hibernation. With the way kind of the video game news cycle, the video game cycle goes now. Like this game or any game gets about 2 weeks of attention before we move on. And then so if you want to do a get every mini game done and explore every area and get every summon and do every single part of it basically without doing a new game plus just one full fat run on dynamic difficulty, like I feel like I'm still pushing away, plugging away at something that is just me out there, which has been a strange experience. Like in terms of views on YouTube and Twitch and everything, um, it's not a game that gets a lot of viewership. It's not a game that it's spread out quite a lot because I think a lot of people want to play it themselves, honestly. So it's been this strange contrast of like, well, I guess it's just me out here, but also at the same time enjoying the game so much. I didn't really think Squaresoft at this point had it in them, honestly. Like I have a pretty cynical view of that company for the last like 10, 15, 20 years, whatever. Like they're basically like to me they've kind of seemed like a husk living off their old successes and doing half-assed pixel remasters and digital updates. But I played the prequel to this game, the Final Fantasy VII remake, before this at the beginning of February. Basically went right into this game, and they really brought out the A squad for this one. Like this is good. It's pretty linear, so there's some parts of it that maybe some people prefer a more open experience, but they offset that by just how much content they have for you to do, how many things you get to do. But like as a story game and in the narrative parts of it, there's very, very few games that work this well. They're this affecting, this touching, this entertaining. For a game that's originally written in Japanese, the English translation, like the English writing, is like really funny, man. Like there's a lot of laugh out loud moments of this. You really, really care about the characters. There's a lot of like genuinely touching emotional moments in a way where that just flies by. Um, and then they there's two big thoughts I thought about a lot when I was playing it, just about it being a remake and just about the sheer budget and effort they put into this game. There is no, I feel like no way that if this wasn't priorly established as a very popular IP, that they would put this kind of effort into the game. Everyone, they know that everyone's got like a recognizable theme: Sephiroth, Tifa, Aerith, Shinra. There's so many elements of the music that weave in and out. They do such an amazing job of linking the motifs that you know from the game back into the story. The original game always has such an amazing soundtrack because the soundtrack knew that the game is ultimately like a weird psychological thriller in some ways more than a standard Final Fantasy game. It's always been weird. It's always been funny to me how hugely popular the game was with so many people when the story is so genuinely strange and the music knew that. There's so many themes that Uematsu did in the original game that are just show just how weird and messed up it is, like Cloud struggling with who he is and whose memories are his. These are all things that are not typical gameplay fare at that point. It feels to me that I can't imagine. I'm sure it could happen, but I can't imagine a company putting this kind of effort, this sort of hugely extravagant production that's so tight and so beautiful, and musically everything is so ambitious. I can't imagine they could ever do that with an original IP. Like I think someone would cut down the budget at some point along the line. And I hope the game does well. I understand that because it was just on PS5, maybe the sales aren't yet the way they would have wanted them to be. But I think this is like so much more than I thought this kind of game in this kind of genre, but this kind of company could still be at this point. You know what I mean? A lot of it's sort of retro and pandering, and no one really. There's a limited population that likes a game like this, but they've like really, really outdone themselves, man. This is a real, honestly, like a legit tour de force by the like real definition of the game above the name. Also, this is one of those cases. I'm not a huge fan of remake culture, and I think that it's executively unadventurous. But if you are going to do something like this where you're playing with people's expectations and so many people expect you to do something that's the exact same but also better and different, the way that they've established a sort of multi-dimensional meta analysis storyline where you're playing with the whispers, you're basically playing with uh like extra dimensional forces changing people's expectations of how the story and destiny is supposed to go. The way they've done it is very, very smart. It's like an exceptionally more mature, intelligent way that like Marvel has been making movies and trying to establish a multiverse, I guess, from most of them that I've seen. I haven't watched that many past the two Avengers movies like most people, I think. But the way that they've made a story that weaves together what people expect with what people would want in something new, I think they've done a very, very good job with that. Gameplay wise, ton of challenging mini games. I smashed my head into some of those summon materia fights at full might. Some of the piano songs are like some of the hardest mini games I've ever done. Um, to get perfect on those piano songs increasingly got more and more difficult, more frustrating. But it's once you get it done, it feels pretty fun. Battle system wise, I think they've done a very very good job of making a pretty elaborate system that sometimes feels a little bit too elaborate. Like you don't necessarily get to like use the full potential of all this. Maybe if I do a hard mode playthrough, I'll realize it. But some characters, and some features, like how much do you really need the summon materia and things like that? Like they're incredibly powerful, but like do you really need them? I'm not really sure. They've done a really, really good job of making a complex battle system where each character feels quite different to play. I think that I particularly think all three girl characters are exceptionally nuts. I think when played at the highest level, Tifa is probably the most fun and maybe in many ways the most powerful. Very, very complex sort of juggling systems and a ton of moves that chain into each other. Really, really good. But they're all fun in different ways. Um, Aerith also seems very, very powerful. Sometimes if you control her, you want to keep your distance from a boss, but a boss doesn't like when the player controlled character keeps distance from them, so it leaps on her, and she has pretty limited mobility outside of the ward shift. So sometimes that can be a bit frustrating. But Tifa, Aerith, Yuffie, these are nuts. They're so powerful. Um, I think that it's a pretty involving system and pretty fun. Enemy skill materia is cool. Being able to have enough materia and enough ways of getting new ones that you can basically have all seven characters kitted out with like a reasonably different way of playing with each other. So you basically have three pre-made parties to switch between. So Cloud, two people, Cloud, two people, Cloud, two people are basically your three parties once you get the full group. So they can be really, really different and play really different. You can switch between them if you want to and have like a pretty exacting system. Um, I Jesus, what more do I really want to say? Queen's Blood is like exceptionally complicated and really fun, really, really involving. The robot AI mini game was fun. There's a lot of good stuff here. I wouldn't necessarily say play the 163 hours, top rank in every mini game, explore every single thing. I'd say for every hour of extremely involving story that goes by like that, because it's so fun, you get 3 hours of stuff where you're like, okay, I'm getting a little bit tired. But it's a funny thing about video games now, right? Like in what way can you criticize a company for giving you so much value for your dollar? Like 163 hours. I even had the thought sometimes, this is so not me. I resent this thinking in the community, but sometimes I was like, can you not? I'm gonna do everything, but can you not give me so much to do so I can maybe go on to the next thing? I'm in my fourth or fifth week of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but what kind of attitude is that? You know what I mean? Sometimes it gets a little exhausting, and I'd probably favor a tight playthrough for most people, but this is a great game, man. This is I already feel like it's got its moment and kind of passed by. As I said, I don't think anything gets more than like a week or two of people's attention unless it's something like an Elden Ring or something. But this is a pretty narrative game in a lot of ways and not terribly viewer friendly. This is something I think people mostly want to like experience themselves. But this is something really, really special. Um, I'm curious how the third one will go. If the third one will be as involving as this one, I have to remind myself what the story is of the entire original game. But I really wonder how much more they have to tell. I assume they would have to make a game just as big as this one for the next one. I don't think FF7 Rebirth is going to be the meat between remake and whatever the third one's going to be as pieces of bread. It's got to be probably just as big, right? But um, it's excellent casting. Every character sprite looks amazing, especially the main character ones. Some of the NPCs are too often just like another slender humanoid that are all about the same, so they can tend to kind of blend into each other, in with each other a little bit. Like for every Don Corneo who's hilarious, there's like a bunch of people who basically just look like the exact same build and size, but I don't know. That's life, I guess. One of the most like beautiful, touching games I've played in a really long time. Like genuinely involving, and like has real panache to it. Like it is. I got a funny technological era of like smartphones and tablets, but rotary phones and tanks and grandfather clocks and swords. It's a pretty unique aesthetic that way. There's a lot of moments of levity in among what still largely seems to be a dark story, though the dark story part doesn't take too much of it. But then the moments where everyone kind of gets together and everyone bounces off each other, which I think is one of like the main goals of the game. I just think they did such a great job with it. Um, yeah, not for anyone, not for everyone, but would be a lot better for more people than necessarily would play it. So I hope this is. I've heard some stuff about what kind of a Square kind of tightening the belt a little bit about not doing so much third-party games, but if Square keeps up this level of accomplishment for the things they make, even if they do just basically keep revising their own old franchises, you can't hope for much more than this, honestly. Give me Xenogears. Give me Final Fantasy VI. They said if Final Fantasy VII took 10 years over 3 games, it would probably take them 20 years to do Final Fantasy VI. Do that. That's a terrific game. That's like my favorite. That's my favorite one ever. Do that. Let's see a Xenogears. Let me be part of the development of that, so I make sure that they do a good job with it. Kate Sith is kind of a joke character. I hope they use Vincent in the next one, in replacement of someone who might be missing in the third one. I always liked using Vincent. You're gonna need to have 7 party members. You want to have 3 open parties. We'll have to see. The motorcycle game kind of sucks. The motorcycle feels horrible to use. Queen's Blood again, totally sick. Really, really, really fun. You can use the pre-made decks and beat basically every challenge in the game with pre-made decks they give you. You could, if you want to, really start making it custom ones with all the legendary cards you get at the end. But with the pre-made decks, I covered every single thing you needed to do. And yeah, that final bonus piano song. Get a perfect rating on that one and tell me how long that took you. Unreal. Okay, bye.